Modern men are exhausted, not because life is too hard, but because their attention is scattered, their emotions are unmanaged, and their sense of self depends too heavily on things they do not control. Stoicism begins with a ruthless correction of this error. It does not promise happiness, admiration, or success. It promises clarity, and clarity once achieved becomes power. The Stoic does not ask how to win the world. He asks how to remain sovereign within it. Stoicism teaches that the greatest conflict a man will ever face is not against other people, society, or circumstance, but against his own impulses. The untrained mind reacts automatically. It chases pleasure, flees discomfort, and seeks validation wherever it can be found. The Stoic mind pauses. It observes. It chooses. This pause is the birthplace of freedom. Without it, a man is a slave to mood, to opinion, to desire. With it, he becomes unshakable. At the center of Stoic philosophy is a simple division that changes everything. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. Our judgments, intentions, values, and actions belong to us. Outcomes, other people's opinions, attraction, rejection, success, failure, and time itself do not. Most human suffering comes from confusing these two categories. We exhaust ourselves trying to manage what was never ours to command, while neglecting the one domain where true power lives, our inner conduct. A Stoic man does not measure his worth by external response. He does not ask whether he is liked, chosen, admired, or desired. He asks whether he acted with integrity, discipline, and reason. This shift is not cosmetic. It rewires how a man moves through the world. When approval is no longer the currency, desperation disappears. When desperation disappears, presence emerges, and presence is felt more deeply than words, strategies, or performance. The modern world teaches men to perform endlessly. Perform confidence, perform kindness, perform strength, perform masculinity. Stoicism rejects performance altogether. It insists on being rather than appearing. A man who is calm does not need to announce his calm. A man who is capable does not need to advertise his competence. A man who respects himself does not demand respect. He behaves in a way that makes disrespect irrelevant. Emotional control is often misunderstood as emotional suppression. Stoicism does not deny emotion. It denies emotional tyranny. Fear, desire, attraction, disappointment, and longing are natural sensations. What Stoicism trains is the refusal to let these sensations dictate behavior. The Stoic feels the impulse but does not obey it blindly. This gap between feeling and action is the mark of maturity. Children react, men choose. One of the most radical consequences of Stoic practice is detachment from outcome. This does not mean apathy or indifference. It means effort without attachment. A Stoic man shows up fully, acts deliberately, and then releases the result. He understands that obsession with outcome poisons performance. When a man becomes fixated on winning approval, securing attraction, or avoiding rejection, his behavior tightens. He becomes anxious, reactive, and incoherent. The Stoic loosens this grip and paradoxically becomes more effective. Silence plays a central role in Stoic masculinity. Not the silence of avoidance, but the silence of self-possession. A man who is comfortable with silence signals that he does not need constant stimulation or reassurance to exist. He does not rush to explain himself. He does not fill every pause with noise. This restraint communicates internal order. In a world addicted to expression, restraint stands out as authority. Stoicism also demands alignment between words and actions. Hypocrisy weakens the soul before it ever weakens reputation. When a man says one thing and lives another, he fractures his inner structure. This fracture creates anxiety because part of him is always defending a lie. The Stoic cleans this up ruthlessly. He simplifies. He lives by principles he can sustain even under pressure. This coherence creates a quiet confidence that cannot be faked. The Stoic approach to relationships begins with a refusal to outsource identity. Another person can be enjoyed, chosen, respected, and even loved, but never used as a source of self-worth. The moment a man needs another person to validate his value, power leaks. Stoicism teaches self-containment. A man must be whole before he connects. Otherwise, connection becomes dependence. Rejection, from a Stoic lens, is not a verdict on worth. It is information. It says something about compatibility, timing, preference, or circumstance, not about the man's essence. The untrained mind takes rejection personally and spirals into self-doubt or resentment. The Stoic examines his conduct, extracts the lesson if one exists, and moves forward without bitterness. He does not beg for closure. He creates it internally. A Stoic man is not passive. He is selective. He does not chase endlessly, because chasing implies scarcity of self. Instead, he builds. He builds habits, skills, discipline, health, and purpose. His life becomes structured around mastery rather than pursuit. As a result, interactions stop feeling like auditions and start feeling like choices. He is not trying to be picked. He is evaluating alignment. One of the hardest Stoic lessons for modern men is learning to tolerate discomfort without immediately trying to escape it. Discomfort is where growth happens. The urge to numb, distract, over-explain, or seek reassurance is the urge to remain weak. Stoicism trains voluntary hardship, restraint, discipline, delayed gratification. These practices strengthen the mind's authority over impulse. A man who can endure discomfort calmly becomes formidable in chaos. Time is treated with reverence in Stoic philosophy. Every wasted hour is a fragment of life surrendered to triviality. The Stoic does not squander attention on meaningless conflict, endless comparison, or imaginary futures. He acts in the present with intention. This seriousness is not heaviness. It is focus. When a man respects his time, others feel it. Boundaries become natural rather than enforced. Stoicism reframes masculinity away from dominance over others and toward mastery over self. True strength is not intimidation. It is restraint. It is the ability to remain composed when provoked, clear when confused, and principled when tempted. This kind of strength does not announce itself. It reveals itself over time, through consistency. Attraction, from a Stoic perspective, is not engineered. It emerges. People respond to coherence, stability, and direction, because these traits signal safety and competence at a deep psychological level. A man who is not seeking approval creates space for others to approach freely. There is no pressure, no agenda, no manipulation. This absence of grasping is often misinterpreted as mystery, but it is simply self-sufficiency. Stoicism also demands accountability without self-flagellation. When a man fails, he does not collapse into shame nor deflect blame. He assesses, adjusts, and recommits. This sober response to failure prevents emotional overreaction and builds trust in one's own resilience. A man who knows he can recover does not fear loss excessively. The Stoic relationship with desire is nuanced. Desire itself is not the enemy. Attachment is. When desire becomes entitlement or dependency, it distorts behavior. The Stoic enjoys without clinging. He appreciates without possessing. He understands that impermanence is not a flaw of life, but its defining feature. Accepting this truth removes much of the anxiety that poisons human connection. In social situations, the Stoic does not compete for attention. He does not perform charisma. He listens more than he speaks, and when he speaks, it is deliberate. His energy is grounded rather than expansive. This groundedness is often mistaken for confidence, but confidence is merely a byproduct. The root is inner order. Stoicism also confronts the modern obsession with being understood. The Stoic does not need everyone to get him. He expresses himself clearly when necessary and accepts misunderstanding when it arises. The need to be constantly validated through explanation is a form of insecurity. Silence, again, becomes strength. Purpose occupies a central place in Stoic life. Without purpose, discipline collapses. With purpose, sacrifice becomes meaningful. The Stoic does not drift. He chooses a direction and aligns daily action with it. This alignment generates momentum, and momentum creates gravity. People are drawn to men who are moving somewhere. Ultimately, Stoicism is not about becoming attractive, successful, or admired. It is about becoming free. Free from emotional volatility. Free from compulsive validation seeking. Free from fear of loss. When a man achieves this freedom, everything else reorganizes around him. His relationships improve not because he tries harder, but because he no longer needs them to complete him. The Stoic man understands that life owes him nothing. This realization does not make him bitter. It makes him grateful. Every moment becomes a gift rather than an entitlement. Gratitude replaces resentment. Responsibility replaces complaint. This inner posture changes how the world responds to him, but that response is no longer his motivation. In the end, Stoicism is quiet. It does not shout. It does not persuade. It does not beg. It stands. And in a world addicted to noise, standing calmly is revolutionary.